Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Felicia Bocanegra, and today I'm going to be presenting film in Taiwan versus film in the United States. And I will be comparing these two movies. So the two films that I chose to compare and contrast is Our Times, which is a Taiwanese film which we saw this semester, which I really enjoyed, as well as 13 Going on 30, which is an American rom-com romantic comedy that is very well known, and it's also like a very comfort movie to me. And so I decided to compare these two as I did find a lot of similarities in both films. Okay, so for the introduction, released in 2015, the Taiwanese film was led and directed by Frankie Chan. As recorded in 2018, their box office retrieved US 84.2 million. So it was a very successful film, and I think it still continues to be very successful as it's still making a pretty good amount of money. So basically, a brief little description of it. Truly Lin goes on an emotional journey as an adult office worker. As an adult now, she's working in an office who relives her high school adventures, and loving bond with Taiyu. I feel like I might mispronounce that, sorry, which is her friend. That was always her friend from high school. So similar to that, 13 Going on 30. A brief description of that is released in 2004. The American film was directed by Gary Winnick, and as recorded in as far as 2019. Similar to Our Times, they still continue to make pretty good money on it, which is 96.5 million on it. So a brief description of the film is Jenna Rink, which is the main character protagonist, is a 13-year-old who dreams of being popular and flashes into the future to her adult self, where she re-encounters her childhood friend Matt. So obviously there's a lot more going on in the film other than flashing front and back on the timeline, but it is very similar due to the romance and things like that. Okay, so the research background you can't really see, but why I chose these films. I chose the films Our Times and 30 Going on 30 since they both flash back and forth between the past and the future, with a romance taking place in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Although there are many cultural differences throughout the film, the topics of love, friendship, and coming of age are found in both. So the research and background sources, 13 Going on 30 stars Jennifer Garner as Jenna Rink, a quirky and sweet 13-year-old who aspires to be popular and liked at her young age. The film flashes into the future at her 30-year-old self, who is popular and successful, who finds Matt Blamhath, her childhood best friend. After 18 years, this film still remains a classic and young adult love story favorite. We see the use of classic 2000s fashion and an importance of popularity in grade school, as well as how friends are able to bond over being in the same popularity group or juvenile social class. So I did find that these 2 points were very, I guess, very special in both films, where their popularity group is kind of what like made the two main characters of both films bond so well. As seen in Our Times. So Our Times stars Vivian Sung and Zhou Chen as Truly Lin. So one of them is the young version of her, and then the other one is the older version. Flashing scenes of her younger and older self through nostalgic scenes connecting her and Tai Yu, her adolescent friend and later romantic interest. The film has its cultural differences, but are connected through their thematic point and time jumping and various other themes. So yes, like many themes such as friendship, love and things like that is what kind of connects the two. And then one of the main differences is basically just the cultural aspects such as clothing, wardrobe, and things like that. Okay, so the research background, my background sources from the previous slide were used to highlight some of the many themes and concepts taken from both films. Both countries reach their target audience of young adolescents as well as many others, noting the success of both films financially. and through the recognition as seen in the resources. So as we can clearly see, we can search up both films on Wikipedia, on IMDb, and we see like how many awards they have and like how successful the films continue to be. And I'm not sure as far as Taiwan, but I'm more than likely sure that it's like a culture favorite, like a comfort movie for many people, as well as 13 Going on 30 is for a lot of American people. Okay, so findings and discussions. So a few things that I found were that in both films, there's a similarity. Both films show us a teenage bond between two main characters at a younger and older age. So right here I have a picture of, on the left is Our Times, which is like their little bond and like them holding hands, which is Taeyu and Truly, or I forgot her name, sorry, or I forgot how to pronounce her name. And then on the right, we see Matt and Jenna, where they're younger and they're bonding and things like that. Okay. On this slide, this is another similarity. Both films show what their version of the two main characters are at their adult age. So here we see the contrast of the younger in the previous slide, and now we see them older in this slide. So we see both characters from Our Times on the left, both characters from 13 Going on 30 on the right. And they're both very similar, very, very cute to see how they grow up together. Okay, the fashion in both films are very different from each other, as one is very late 90s, early 2000s from 13 Going on 30, and Our Times is a much more elegant and formal attire. So as we can see throughout the film, when they're younger, they are in, school, so they're very formal, put together, whereas 13 Going on 30 is way more Y2K, as they call it, very how can I describe it, like very timely based American 2000s clothing. So you could see that difference in both films. Okay, and then lastly, I have another similarity. So both films show the two main characters resolve their problems and live happy together in the end. So right here on the left, we see, you can't really tell, but right here we see Taeyu and True we see her rekindle with her friend, and they start to see that they're each other's surprise. And then on the right we see Matt and Jenna get married in the end, which is a really cute ending. Okay, so reflection, perspective, and feedback. Excuse me. In 13 Going on 30, we see two characters, Jen and Matt, develop their relationship as young kids and later drift apart during the film and later meet again in the end. So I think this is a very key point that connects the two films, as in Our Times, Taeyu and Truly Lin have a very similar relationship, and I think that this film highlights the importance of how a solid friendship can be rekindled, although time and age has drifted these two people apart. There are many exterior relationships and conflicts in both films, but it's pretty easy to see how the characters fit the thematic points throughout the film. As for feedback, overall, the film has many thematic pieces which are key to the coming of age rekindling story. And I think that Our Times is a tiny bit, the only thing that I would have changed about Our Times is the solid ending. I know it was more of like an artistic thing to have the viewers guess what the ending is like, but I think if I was a director, I would have had a solid ending. And I genuinely loved both films, and they give a nostalgic feel to viewers, which can easily be seen as comfort films for many people like myself in the case of 13 Going on 30. For the conclusion, films are key to understand the similarities excuse me, and romantic relationships for many people around the world, especially through the changes due to time and temporary separation. Watching films from another country can bring exposure and awareness to how much more film options there are available to us, such as in Our Times. And we see how we can all experience the same emotions, and how adolescent crushes and school stories have an amazing plot are enjoyable to watch. And for the questions, number 1, did you find any personal similarity in watching either film? Any memories that you can relate to to the plots of either film. So watching the film, did you think like, oh my God, that was me and my little middle school crush or whatever? Number two, what is something you did not expect to be so similar in Taiwan culture as seen in the film, compared to either your culture, American culture, anything? Do you think after the semester your interest for watching international films has grown? And yes, that is the end. These are my resources. And thank you so much for watching. Bye. Yo. But yeah, that is the end of this presentation. And yeah.